Hey, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be showing you how you can assemble your maps in Davigedit. Last time I told you how to actually move around at the end, but I'll go over it again. Basically it's just right click in this scene window right here, and you can look around and all that. W, A, S, and D to move around how you would normally move around, and you can hold shift to go extra fast. You can press down the middle mouse button to sort of pan around, or you can use it to zoom in, zoom out. So yeah, that's pretty much the basics of how you actually, navigate around the scene. But all this stuff is actually one of the levels, so if there's anything like you want to change, you could left click on any of these objects. These are all objects included in Davigedit, so you can just click on any of these and you'll see these arrows. You can drag up and down, left and right, yeah, and you can drag these so you can move across like 2 dimensions, like that, or like that, like that. Sometimes they're helpful if you're just like quickly moving stuff, but anyway, there's more tools. So let's take this back out here. So this rock, maybe it's too small. Maybe we need a bigger rock. So this scale tool up here, you can just click that, and then you can press this middle box and scale it to make it bigger or smaller. Or you can scale along a single axis, but you'll get this like a blurry effect kind of when you do it too much. And it kind of looks weird, but I mean, you're free to do whatever. But generally you want your map to look good, so just be careful how much you stretch it. So yeah, let's maybe we want to rotate this because we want it to be in this side, but it doesn't look right because in these it just looks like a a square rock, but here you can actually see how it's sort of bent. So oops, we're gonna want to go over here and select this rotating tool. We can rotate it so that it's on the right, sort of facing the right way, and we can put it there. Or in some of my maps I have it in the ground, because these are actually the rocks that kind of take a second to break out of the ground, or the ledges, and sometimes I like to take them to the ground and rotate them so that they kind of look like they're lodged in there. Of course, when the giant takes them out, there won't be a hole or anything, but I mean, unless you make one, but that's some advanced stuff that is a lot harder to do and that I don't really bother with doing. So, and that's pretty much the main 3 you just want to mess around with. You can move, you can rotate, and you can scale. But oh yeah, Control Z, by the way, is how do you undo stuff. So let me just go ahead and spam Control Z here. We can go ahead and put it back. Now it's right where it was. So yeah, basically that's how you move around stuff and how you adjust things. So you'll see like there's these birds that are just sort of T-posing here. There's a little rocketeer, and obviously there's a big Goliath here, and there's a warrior over here. These are the spawn positions. We'll get into that later. Same for these and same for the birds, but we kind of don't want to use this map, right? We want to make our own thing. So what you can do is go down here. You can go back to your assets or wherever. I like to create a new folder, and we can call it maps, and you can use this singular like entire project from multiple different maps. So for this one, I will just make a tutorial map, and I will go into this folder, create scene, and we will name it tutorial. Okay, so basically what we just did, we created a maps folder for all our maps, we created a tutorial folder for this specific map, and now we created a scene called tutorial, which is the actual map. So now we can double click on here. I won't save this. And yes, make sure you do apply the lighting defaults to the map. Alright, and now we're in outer space. Just kidding. We're in an empty space. So go ahead and they're important. Well, actually, delete the main camera. The right directional light is important. We're gonna right click 3D object, go ahead and click cube, and we have a cube. So obviously it's really hard to determine the size of this cube because, you know, there's nothing to compare it to. This is just, I mean, we could be super small or we could be super big. So what you can do is sort of actually go up here and set all the positions here, and under the transform to 0, 0, 0, 0, or you can right click reset position, but we already did that, so it's kind of gray. And then we can go to Davigo, Davigedit package, and prefabs. And these are sort of the 3 main things. These are like the must-haves in every single map, or else it will not work. Must-haves in every single map, or else it will not work. So you can see now that we have this giant here, let's go ahead and reset position just to show. We have this giant here, and we also have this cube. So now we can see this cube is actually really small. And we know how to scale things now, so let's go ahead and scale this cube up. But we don't want to just have a big cube. I mean, we could, but I think I would rather make it longer and wider. So now we sort of have this, you know, platform we can use, and we know how big it is compared to how big the giant will be. So we can move the giant closer, and maybe we want to bring this up so it's not so far down on the giant. Really, this is something you're gonna have to play around with. There's like a sweet spot, and to be honest, I haven't really found it yet, but I'm sure, you know, you can play around with it and create maps, and you can test them without having a Patreon player. So, oops, that's kind of, want to move the entire thing, so it's just like the whole thing. All right, yeah, it's kind of middle. All right, I don't know why I'm being so meticulous. It doesn't really matter. But anyways, we have this, and this is actually the giant spawn location. So this is a good indicator of the scale, as well as it tells you exactly where the giant will spawn. So whenever the giant resets his position, this is where he will show up. This is how he will reorient himself, and during the beginning of the map, this is how he will be facing. So now that we have this set up, we can do the same thing with the warrior start position. And here we go. We can rotate him, or better yet, we can just type in -180. Can rotate him, or better yet, we can just type in -180. Oops. And we have a better thing. And I just want to make sure, well, I don't think it matters too much, but it makes sure obviously he's above the ground. So now we have this set up. We have a spawn position for each of our players, and now we want this kill zone. So this kill zone has a bunch of green boxes around. It's kind of hard to see. Just let me make it bigger, but I don't know. You can see that we're sort of surrounded by a cube, and you can see it even better if I go into this isometric view and orient ourselves over here. You can see, is this isometric? There we go. Now we're in isometric. Wait, I don't know. I don't know what it's called. I'm pretty sure it's called isometric, but anyways, we're switching to our views and where everything is. So what we want, this kill zone, is if, you know, the warrior falls through this, he will die. So this is how you sort of signify, okay, when is out of bounds a thing. And I guess if you're making a giant map where it's like super big, and I mean, I really advise against it, but you know, bigger than the actual normal kill box, you could scale it and make it bigger, but I really don't recommend it. So you want to make sure that it's, oops, kind of in the middle, the center on here, and you could bring it down to the center here, but it will take a little bit longer for the warrior to die, so I'm just going to put it up here, and this is a pretty good buffer zone. After this point, I really don't think the warrior is going to be able to save himself. So now that we have that set up, pretty much, now that we have that set up, pretty much your map is ready to go. I mean, it's a terrible map, of course, because the warrior can just grab on here. It's not balanced at all. There's no rockets that the warrior can use. The giant can grab him, throw him. There's nowhere for the warrior to hide or run away to. But oops. This is sort of the bare bones map, I guess, of what you could have, but what you really shouldn't have. So now let's look at making this map a little bit more prettier. We have this placeables folder here, but first I think that this white ground looks super ugly. You could always do this. You could create material. We'll name it red. You could always create material, set the albedo up here, click on here, set the albedo to red, and now it's red, but honestly that's kind of weird. I mean, I guess you could also make it more metallic or more smooth, depending on how you want it to look against the light, or if you want light to reflect off of it at all. But this kind of just, it still looks ugly. We don't really want a solid color. We want it to look like it belongs in Davigo itself. So we're going to go here to common, materials, I believe, and then level. Yep. And here we have grid cliff. So you'll see once we drag it on top of the actual thing that it will sort of, I don't know how to explain it, just color it for us. You know, it has the sides, and this is called a shader. This is advanced stuff in Unity. I don't really bother with it, but stuff you would know is you know, just these textures right here. You can adjust the smoothness and stuff if you really want to, but I would like to keep it to default. So if you want to duplicate this, you could, and then you could change this stuff so that way you're not messing with the original thing, and do rename. And you can name it metal cliff, and we can drag it on there, and we can make it so it's more metallic through this thing. And I guess it really doesn't seam it, but this really just affects the way how light would reflect off of it. You could also increase the smoothness, so now it's like really smooth and really metallic, so light will reflect off of it. But I don't really care for that, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete it, drag and drop that. Okay, so that's really the one thing you want to do. You can do this for custom terrain too, but you have to be really careful about slopes, because you can see that you have these sort of dark green area here if you slope it too much. But this is not using a blender mesh, so we're not going to worry about that until later. I'm also going to make this bigger. So now we have a bigger area. The giant can't just. The giant can't just reach in and grab the warrior right then and there. Also, I would like to sort of. I don't like how it looks just like a square. So I guess what we could do is drag it closer. Let's move the giant out of the way, or rotate him against here. So now we could take that, rotate that, move it over here. Control D. When we have this cube selected, we can duplicate the cube, and bam, it is the same exact thing with the same properties. We can drag it over here, or actually, how about we scale it down, and now we can drag it over here next to the giant, so the warrior has to jump over in order to get there, and he can risk being grabbed by the giant. Or we can actually, what looks good, see what doesn't look good. Let's make this a little bit like that. Bring him here. See, I'm not really sure which height the warrior, or the giant should be at, but I will keep him there. And then we have this little other part here. Let's go ahead and look at it. Looks pretty good, I would say. So now the warrior could jump over here, and the giant can still kind of grab him here. But when the warrior goes over here, it's a little bit more difficult for the giant to get him. You can see the checkerboard looks kind of weird, so we can control select both of these, or control left click, and we can sort of fix it so that it's more straight along the edge of the grid lines. Oops. It doesn't really matter, it's more aesthetic than anything. But now we have this going on, and we could have the warrior over here. This is where he starts out, or he can start out over this far corner. Either way, we can rotate the giant so he's more looking at this corner than just at 1. Or it might be better for him to look at 1 so that it's alright. Okay. To me that looks pretty good. Move this back a little bit. So now we got, you know, an okay layout. You'd really want to be more complex than this, but for now this is really the extent of the effort I'm willing to give for this simple video. Now what we can do is decorate this place, and this is kind of where the fun part is you can go, sorry I went too fast, you can go to Davigedit package, prefabs, right, and then placeables, and you have all these things. So we can put down this brick. All you have to do is drag it and drop it into the scene, and of course you can move it, so we can have like a little wall right here. And of course we can also move this up, and these automatically will have physics applied to them because these are prefabs that Davigedit, I'll show you how to do it in a future episode, but you're gonna have to add some rigid bodies to those. But for now we're just gonna use the ones that the Davigedit package comes with. So we can hide a rocket behind this, and over here we can, on the most dangerous island I would say, we can put down a cannon right here. These cannons will automatically target the giant no matter where they're placed, so that's handy. You don't really need to worry about changing anything. It's really simple. One thing I do recommend watching out for is that sometimes the giant will have to jump to get on these plates if they're too high. So right there the warrior will have to walk and then jump instead of just walk onto these plates. But right here, I would say that should be fine. And then we can Control D, take it over here, Control D, take it over here, and Control D, take it over here. Let's get over here. It's not super even, but whatever. So now these cannons here, the warrior can just run across these, and all 4 of them will shoot the giant. The giant will have to dodge it somehow. But at the same time, if the warrior goes over here and the giant's quick enough, the giant can potentially grab the warrior, and the warrior's out of luck. So there's sort of trade-offs that you have to think about, and you have to balance it between the giant and the warrior. But other than that, let's go and we can put down a couple trees. So these trees are the ones that the giant can rip out of the earth. So I'm going to put those down a little bit. Trees are always nice. It's a nice decoration, if anything. Put these down here. And also there are some nice things you could hide behind as the warrior, but also they can get knocked out of the ground. So let's do this, and I think that's okay. So now we can put down, I think, some of these. Some regular bricks. We can have these scattered around. We can rotate them so they don't look super duper straight, and while we're at it we can rotate these so it's more of a curved wall, and to me I just thought it looks a little bit better. Let's put this down a little bit. Even though it will fall when the match starts, I don't want it to, fall too much and make it look ugly. So we have this here, Control D, and if you're wondering which hotkeys I'm using to sort of cycle through, W is a quick hotkey to go into this arrow stuff. E is a good one to rotate, and R is a good one to skate, and R is a good one to scale. So this can really, if you memorize those, it can really make your workflow that much faster. Instead of having to go up here, rotate, go up here again, so you can move it. It's really handy. So, yep, now we got some of these, and we can, for the giant, because we want him to have some stuff to throw, we can put these little things down here. We have really sort of a thin ground, so it doesn't look the greatest, but it doesn't matter too much since, you know, this is just a tutorial. But ideally, you're going to want to give your map a lot more effort than this. So we have this, and I kind of want some of these a little bit closer for the giant to use. But we don't want to crowd the area too much, really, right? Of course, let's put another cannon over here. So there's more cannons than at the small little island over there. Duplicate this. Let's take it back over. Can take it over here. And we'll take another one. We can put it here. You want to make sure that there's nothing really in the way of the cannons so that they can fire and not hit like any obstacles. Like right here, this could hit this tree actually that I'm looking at it. So probably move the tree right over here in front of those. That thing could hit this tree, so let's move this tree. I think it should be fine. Oops. One thing is you'll get like sometimes it'll fall apart, so you just want to make sure you select the entire object up here, tree, and then move it. And here, yep, it's automatically selected the tree for us, so we can move that there. And we'll move it over here. Why not? So that looks pretty decent, I would say. So now let's put down some more rockets. We can put some down here. We can put a couple near the giant. So the thing is that you want the rockets to sort of be in risky locations because that's the main tool of combat, right? So of course you want to have like one or two maybe in someplace safe, but definitely would be good to have some in riskier places like closer to the giant so that it remains balanced. So here we got a map, and of course we're going to put down a bird somewhere. Let us put down the bird on this rock right here. So that should be fine. Maybe up a little bit more like that. There we go. And now we have so I think we've used pretty much everything other than the small rocks. I guess we can put a couple small rocks around. Sort of block the warrior's path right there. And actually there is one more thing. So the next thing we're going to want to do is add an impactable script to these surfaces. Impactable basically means the giant can put fissures down and smash it. So how you do that, like I just did, you just select the ground, which for us are these two cubes here, and add component, and that at first, but you can search impactable and just select impactable component, and bam, these here will all be impactable, except for, you know, the stuff that's not supposed to be like these. It's just these two things here. These are both now impactable and can be smashed and fissured. So I hope you guys enjoyed that tutorial. We will be looking at how to export maps later. So that's actually really easy, and it'll be a short video, but I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you guys can now make some beautiful maps.